he'll spin the wheels, then through the left-hander, up through the gears. Slightly uphill at this stage. From fifth gear back down to third. And cresting the rise as you go between the left and the right-hand elements. The road dropping away on the exit. And again, Philip Pater working the steering and the throttle to avoid too much oversteer. And there you have to sacrifice the entry for the exit because there's a good run down to this downhill right-hander, which is a big overtaking area. And it's sort of right-hand complex, short shoot and a shift down here into the left-hander. This is second gear, the slowest corner on the track. And then accelerating out here, third gear, back down to second, but a little quicker. Still running downhill, holding second here, and again, weight on the throttle of the GT or lots of wheel of the GT car or lots of wheel spin on the exit. Up to third, up to fourth, and going for fifth gear as well, accelerating hard down into the next braking area. And another second gear turn in here. And again, the road running away downhill, encouraging the oversteer there from the back end of the car. Down the dip, back up the other side, up into third, back into second, into this second left-right sequence here. And another big overtaking opportunity. Again, the exit very important here as you come up the gearbox and up the hill into the closing sequence of corners. Again, down a couple of notches. Second gear again, and again cresting the rise as you come through the left and the right that leads you back out onto the start-finish line. Pit entrance on the right-hand side, and the lap takes just a little over a minute, 2 minutes rather, in the GT cars. So that's what the track looks like. Now let's get down to the pole man, who is again Jean-Marc Gounon.
On pole position again, but you had a few reliability problems in the other races, so are you confident today?
Oh, we are. It's difficult to be confident. Each race is another problem, but we had two different problems with the gearbox on Manicourt and Enna. The positive point is that the car is quick. We are on front, and I think one day the luck will change, and I hope it will be this day. I think the X-Track and Conrad did a good job on the car. We have a complete new gearbox with different materials, and I hope this time will be the right time to be on 3 hours to be at the end, and we will see.
Well, certainly no questioning the speed of Gounon and the Conrad Celine, but the longevity and the ability to hold that pace once Gounon has stepped out of the car with Tony Seiler and Franz Conrad, the other two drivers, also question marks raised over them. But initially after Enna, Franz Conrad had thought that he would not be racing here at Brno, but the X-Track based in Great Britain, turning round replacement gearbox components to try and defeat those gearbox problems that have bugged the car since the beginning of the year in superb short order. Now then, let's join last year's winner, Jamie Campbell-Walter.
Jamie Campbell-Walter, a spot of bad luck at the beginning of these championships. Less reliable car in Manicourt, and now more reliable in Pegusa. How about today?
Let's hope so. I mean, yeah, I think we had a lot of bad luck at Barcelona with the roof, and then also a 40-second lead at Magny-Cours, with 4 laps to go. So our luck changed at Enna, and hopefully it continues here. It's about time we won a race this year, and it's a good track for us to do it. We won here last year, and the car's been, really good up until now. So difficult to start P2 because the first corner is a right-hander, obviously, and it's very dirty on the outside, so we'll do our best and hope we can, win the race. It's a long race, so it's not so important to win it at the first corner.
Well, in the year 2000, he won this race with Julian Bailey. Last year won it with Nick Springer. And there is Thomas Enger and Robert Pergel's Menex car, that Ferrari, the local Czech favourite. So far hasn't shown the sort of pace to win in NGT. Now then, as the field get away, previous winners on this track include Jean-Marc Gounon, who won an FIA sports car race here in a Lola Judd with Eric Bernard, and Enzo Calderari. When did he win? Well, he won back in 1987 in a BMW M3, but the 550 Maranello he's driving this weekend, Robin Liddell, is going to be a very different prospect, and a very hot one as well, with the ambient temperatures soaring into the 80s and the track temperature over 100 degrees. It's going to be a long, hot race for everyone.
Yeah, very much so, and we'll see drivers' fitness coming into play during the race, and and also just how well the cars are set up for a longer stint, for a race run, as opposed to for a short qualifying period. So we may see that it throws up some differences. One car which we were looking at with interest was the Hazeman's Cump and Viper, which was up there in the second qualifying. It was quickest in second qualifying, which was a slower session, and also quickest in the warm-up. So they're looking like they're going to be pretty strong in the race. And in addition to that, the Fabio Bobini and Philip Peter Ferrari was also going very well in the second session, but didn't feature in the first one. So one or two surprises could be put forward, but certainly Jean-Marc at this stage in the Celine looking very, very strong.
Well, of course, his Celine's so easy to spot, being bright yellow, but there are two other Graham Nash Motorsport Celines. They were unable to repair the one that Tommy Erdos wrecked in qualifying at Enna, but fortunately Mike Newton's got some spares, so they're racing one of those. Away they go, and it is Jean-Marc Gounon who won on this track back in 1999 in an open Lola, who leads from Jamie Campbell-Walter, last year's winner, but already Jamie under pressure from the Ferrari. Biaggi and Bobby alongside, or from row 2 of the grid, getting alongside Jamie Campbell-Walter and looking down the inside. Didn't quite managed to get the move put to bed, but right from the first couple of corners, this is a battle on everybody's hands. And right from the first couple of corners, that's the Boris de Richebourg, David Terrian, Christian Pescatori, JMB Ferrari firmly in the gravel, so it looks like their race might be over already, Robin.
Yeah, disaster for them. Gounon pulling out quite a nice lead there, and one of the Ferraris of Bobby looking to overtake the Lister, but it settled down a little bit. But disaster for de Richebourg, and both David Terrian and Pescatori in the pits. I'm sure they will be disappointed yet again with that performance.
Well, that's a big shame. Some good driver lineup in that car as well, a good strong three-way driver lineup. Of course, David Terrian last year racing with the Labra Viper team, and the year before he was the NGT champion with the JMB Ferrari team, so he's got plenty of heritage in this championship. But yeah, you're right, look at Gounon, half a lap, and that's got to be 2.5 to 3 seconds by the time they get to the end of it. There in fourth place is the Festina Force One, or one of the two Festina Force One Vipers, and that's Mike Hazeman's going very strongly indeed, ahead of the Ferrari now, so he's moved up a spot or two. And this is the car that's right behind him, the number 22 machine, and that is Capillari and Golin's car. Fabrizio starting the car, with the Capillari will do the centre stint. Of course, that's the car that won on the road at Enna, but then lost with a cracked airbox in post-race scrutineering, so they've got a bit of a point to prove as well, I think, here.
Well, they have. The car's been pretty much dominant up until now, really, in terms of its performance, and now with the reliability that the car's shown, which has been improved over the last couple of seasons, the car really is a very strong contender. They've got strong driver lineup, and you'd have to say at the moment they're looking very good. Jean-Marc out in front, and he's doing an excellent job. He's got a pretty decent lead at the end of the first lap, but of course he's sharing with two gentleman drivers, so we'll have to see how that sort of unfolds.
Well, he's certainly going well, isn't he? 2.5 seconds in one lap. Matteo Bobbi, Mike Hazeman's, Fabrizio Golin next up, and looking from behind, Andrea Piccini, you just saw darting out there behind Fabrizio Golin. Then the second Force 5 Festina car, Philippe Alliot, right behind the Lister Storm. Then the JMB car, the number 9 JMB car, Philip Pater and Fabio Bobini, of course, who was our, or who were our guests on our lap of the circuit. Well, let's have a look again at the start, and keep your eyes peeled, everybody, for a yellow and red Ferrari spearing off. Well, there was the number 9 car going through. Number 10 car, yeah, having a little waver into the first corner. Let's see when we pan round if we pick it up in the gravel. Let's have a look over to the right-hand side. Don't see it going off there, but somewhere in those first couple of corners was the end of their race, and that's a real disappointment for everybody.
Looked like he braked a little bit late. You could see the car squirming, possibly got on the dirty line, and once you're on all the dirt and the marbles, then it's very difficult to recover the car, especially when you're on cold tyres. So I think it was possibly just a wee bit of over-exuberance on his part, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a real shocker as well, when you've worked hard all weekend to get to the start of a 3-hour race and the car doesn't even come round at the end of lap 1. That really is a... Oh, well, it could be worse. It could have been the first lap at Le Mans, but then I suppose they'd have dragged it in and eventually tried to get it fixed. They've got 24 hours after all. Now then, on board again with the 22 car, Capillari and Golin, Fabrizio Golin at the helm. And he's got attentions from behind rather than what's going on in front of him to worry about, I think, because Philippe Alliot starting this number 5 car, Mike Hazeman's rather, starting this number 5 car. Philippe Alliot is in fact behind the 22 car. Mike Hazeman's is behind the 23 car of Biaggi and Bobbi, are 3-time race winners so far this season.
It's a very impressive drive from Hasemans at this stage, actually. We know that the Viper's pretty long in the tooth, and whilst the Festina Hasemans team have really worked hard to develop the car, and ultimately I suppose you could say the reliability suffered from time to time, but the car is still very, very quick in the hands of Hasemans and Kumpen, and it's showing that it's right up there, only lapping half a second behind the leading 550 at the moment.
Well, Hasemans, in fact, has won here at Brno, or not on this circuit, on the old circuit. No, not Mike, of course. He wasn't even a twinkle in his father's eye when Toine Hasemans won on the old street circuit of Brno in his Alfa Romeo GTM as part of his championship, one of his 2 championship winning years. And now the Lister Storm having a little shifty down the inside, and Andrea Piccini is getting bored of seeing the back of this Ferrari, isn't he? And that's the 22 car, the camera car, that we've been riding with a couple of times. Piccini wants by, and he's now really starting to make some concerted efforts to try and do so.
Well, he needs to be a little bit careful. Jamie's obviously a wee bit in front of him, and is just letting the pace settle in, but what he doesn't want to do, we've got high track temperatures, we've got quite a long race. The Lister is obviously a good car, but it's got a lot of downforce, it's quite stiff, and if he starts working the car too hard now, he's going to his tire temperatures are going to rocket, and then he's going to find it a wee bit trickier later on. So hopefully he can find a way past Golan, but without too much drama.
Well, the real sufferer here will be the left front tyre, as in most clockwise circuits, but it's a pretty low grip track, certainly compared to Enna, which is I think second only to Clermont-Ferrand as one of the most abrasive track surfaces on the planet. It certainly eats tyres. Barcelona, not exactly comfortable on tyres either. That's a pretty abrasive circuit, but here tyre wear, unless the drivers really do make an all-out effort to blister them, shouldn't be too much of a factor here. So we ought to be able to see the cars at least double stinting their tyres. Don't think anybody will need to or attempt a triple stint, but it might be possible that the window is open for that. Tyre companies tend not to like that very much, but needs must sometimes when the devil's riding hard on your tail. So Piccini still with a little tighter line there than the Ferrari, and still showing his nose. And you see the pressure as well, because the Ferrari's starting to kick up the dirt as he runs off over the edges of the curbs, and it's those sort of moments that can just bring a mistake, and you can see your position disappearing from you as you run out wide, courtesy of dropping over onto the grass.
Well, it's an interesting one, that, because sometimes if you just run a little wheel wide like he's done there, and you can see the replay, sometimes it just winds up the guy behind a little bit. There's nothing worse than getting a face full of gravel when you're following a car closely, so it can actually, in fact, Piccini made an error there. He got too far inside the apex curve and kicked up some dust of his own, so he's obviously pushing hard, but he needs to just keep it nice and tidy and not work the car too hard, as I was saying.
So he's spoken like a true single-seater driver. Just run over this little bit of gravel, throw it all over the visor of the guy behind.
Eat my dust.
Absolutely. Well, Nigel Mansell used to boast about doing that in the days when they had titanium skid plates under the car. He said if you really get it, somebody right up your backside, he said you can pepper their visor with titanium. It just burns little pits in it. He says it's really, really distracting. Of course, they don't have that advantage here. But again, you see the nose of the Ferrari there, dive under braking, and the Lister likewise. The cars, although they look as though they're just kind of pottering around because there's no speed differential between them to really give you the effect of one catching the other, they are certainly, both of them, being worked very hard, particularly through this little left-right sequence, second gear all the way through, and one of the real switchback sections on this track that makes it so demanding physically on the drivers, particularly in these temperatures as well.
Well, one of the things you can see there is the drivers have to be quite progressive on the throttle. Obviously they've got around 600 horsepower under their right foot, and you know, they need to obviously be quite progressive with the power. If they just nail the throttle, they're going to light up the rear tires, and consequently the tires are going to start to go off pretty quickly. So for a driver, it's a bit of an exercise in self-discipline at this stage of a race, because you're obviously trying to capitalize on some pace that you may or may not have. But if you get a little bit over exuberant, then you're going to really hurt your chances later on, and you can find quite often in these type of classes of racing, you know, drivers are losing 2, 3, 4 seconds a lap, sometimes even more, if they've really rooted the tires in the early stages of the stint.
Well, Jean-Marc Gounon down in a 1 minute 59.1 second lap at the moment, and so quicker than anybody else by some margin. Now here is our NGT leader. I was just about to mention this. Bertolini has grabbed the lead from Stefan Ortelli, right behind him in the Freisinger Motorsport Porsche that sat on pole. Third place in class is the number 89 Maranello concessionaires Ferrari. That is the Calvin Burt car, and right behind him is Tim Sugden's MK Racing Porsche, that of course was the beneficiary of a very last-minute spin by the Ferrari on the last lap at Enna. In fact, it's not Tim Sugden's car, that's the yellow and red Porsche behind, so it's, is that the Sugden car? Yes,
yeah, just sort of slight reworking on the colour scheme there.
So they have a little bit more yellow and red in it. And Andrea Bertolini jumping past Ortelli in traffic. Probably Ortelli held up by a slower GT car in the first few corners. Because of the nature of a lot of second gear, third gear corners here, the NGT cars for at least half the lap, at least as fast as most of the GT cars, and quicker than a number of them. So I imagine that Bertolini probably just snicked down the inside as Ortelli got held up by a front marker, I suppose, is the phrase I'm looking for there.
Well, we didn't see the first few laps, but it would appear that Ortelli took the lead, and Stefan, obviously a very accomplished driver, particularly in a Porsche. Bertolini leading the points championship in NGT at the moment by just 1 point going into this race, but Stefan very keen to get his name on the points board. He's obviously scored no points so far in the season, and he'll be keen to take Bertolini, which I suspect he's going to do fairly quickly. The Porsche looks a wee bit quicker at the moment, and Stefan's all over the back of him.
Calvin Burt's closing in from behind as well. Tim Sugden here, and of course he will do the first and third stints. Martin Short will do the middle stint in that car. So Calvin Burt starting, Darren Turner will do the middle, well, if there is a middle stint for the Team Maranello concessionaires Ferrari. He'll do the second stint at any rate, but so far as Ortelli retakes the lead, let's see what Bertolini's got on the exit. So far the Maranello cars have managed to single stop all the races that they have successfully completed, and that's quite impressive considering they're going pretty much front-running pace with the Freisinger and the JMB cars. So where they're finding that, well, unfortunately in one instance we know it's because the fuel tank was accidentally too large.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Martin, and I didn't have to mention it, but there you go.
But they paid the penalty for that. But even with a legal-sized fuel tank, they're still finding it possible to single stint in the way that the Porsche could last year, and doesn't seem to be able to do this year. In the way that Ferrari could 2 years ago with the JMB cars, but last year they weren't able to. So again, lots of development work on the different ways that these teams are approaching their cars, although they start with the same baseline, yielding different results. And now, look, Calvin has got the bit between his teeth. You can see that scarlet and Cambridge blue nose right up behind Bertolini's JMB yellow and red car, and he is looking for second in NGT. He's seen the Freisinger Porsche go by, and he doesn't want to lose sight of Ortelli.
Well, it's an interesting topic of conversation because I drove with Stefan in that car 2 years ago, and we were trying to one-stop the car at that time because the Ferrari 360 was one-stopping and it was winning all the races with Terrien and Pescatori. And it proved possible to actually one-stop the Porsche, but since then obviously the Ferrari's got quicker, it's using more fuel, and you know, they've found it very tough to one-stop and be competitive as well. So it is very much a balancing act. In their case, they've got two very equal drivers, so there's no advantage to be taken by obviously running a short middle stint with perhaps a slightly slower driver at the wheel.
Absolutely so. Jean-Marc Gounon still continuing to lead. He's in the GT Plus class, clearly, because he is now a long way ahead of the rest of the GT field. 6.3 seconds after 6 laps. Well, not quite the 2.5 seconds per lap that he opened up on the first lap, but certainly a very sizable advantage and growing by the minute. And the lead NGT car is in 13th place, I think, in the overall standings now, and that is the Freisinger Motorsport Porsche of Stefan Ortelli. Round 4 of the FIA GT Championship at Brno, and drama for the Russian NG, the RWS Yukos Porsche, in real trouble. Nikolai Fomenko and Alexei Vasiliev are out of the race and only 9 laps old. So the Russians, I'm afraid, not enjoying the greatest of luck here. We'll try and find out what happened to that.
Of course, we saw a problem with the sister car in the warm-up this morning. Seems to have some sort of an engine-related problem, so whether it's the same sort of situation or not, let's wait and see.
Yeah, busy days for the RWS team. Let's catch up with Vasiliev.
Alexei Vasiliev, it's the first retirement of the race. What happened to you?
After the 5 lap, the broken oil system and engine, and car must have a big other steering. And I understand Red headlamp on dash panel and go to box.
Thank you.
Well, always a good call when you get a big red warning light. Oh, let's call it a day before it gets really expensive.
Yeah, that is a big red light on the Porsche dash as well.
Certainly is. Now then, 14 laps into the race. This is the battle for second and third in the NGT category. Stefano Telli leads, Andrea Bertolini in second place. No, in fact, he's not, because that's not Tim Sugden behind the two Ferraris. Sugden, since we last caught up with him, has jumped into second, past both the Ferraris, passing Kelvin Burt in the Maranello car and the 52 car that we're on board now with Bertolini. And is that a lot of understeer, do you think, there?
Yeah, I think the Ferrari will suffer from a bit more understeer than the Porsche will. Tim's got the Porsche up into second there in class, which is very good, and it looks like he's holding station roughly with Stefan at the moment. But the MK car, a very well prepared car and a great chassis and gearbox package, so they're obviously running strongly at the moment.
We can see Jamie Campbell-Walter in the number 14 Lister Storm working his way past the 99 car, post-engine change. Stefan Dowdy and Walter Lechner Jr. in that yellow and green Yukos Porsche, the RWS car, and also now past the Auto Palace Ferrari, which has been singularly out of luck so far this season for Guillaume Gomez and Stevie S, the two Frenchmen. And right behind him, the number 23 BMS Scuderia Italia Ferrari. That's Thomas Biaggi and Matteo Bobi, our three-time race winners. Still not able to make their way past the Lister Storm, but still not being shaken off entirely either. The gap's opened up a little bit in the traffic, so Jamie's made the best of his opportunities there, I think.
Yeah, I think Jamie's pretty committed in the traffic, and Biaggi in the car behind in the 550 probably doesn't have quite as much experience of lapping traffic as Jamie.
So this is the Team Maranello concessionaires car of Kelvin Burt, 19 laps into the race, and he is third place in the NGT category. Or is he? Has he got past Bertolini? Well, I can't see. Yes, there is Bertolini behind him, so he is now up into third place. There's Tim Sugden in second in NGT, and Kelvin, well, 4.4 seconds back now on Tim Sugden. And of course, the two of them came up through the single-seater ranks pretty much at the same time, didn't they, as young Formula 4 drivers?
Yeah, I'm just surprised to see the JMB 360 dropping back a little bit. I don't know, maybe they've got a slight problem with the car. We know the tyres are very good, and Pirelli really won the race for them at Barcelona in the hot temperatures and the abrasive track conditions that we saw there. So I don't anticipate it's a problem with tyres, but maybe somebody else has a problem with tyres.
Somebody has. Look, there's a wheel rim on the back of the Hazelman's Viper, and not much tyre attached to it, and it's throwing off bits and pieces. And this is always a bit of a drama for everybody else, because with so much composite bodywork on these cars now, it's leaving loads of needle-sharp little shards of composite material in the track, and those, as we know, do just love to lance holes in other people's tyres. Here's our race leader, Jean-Marc Gounon, still comfortably ahead of everybody else in the V8-powered Celine S7R. And now, look, 13, nearly 14 seconds ahead of Jamie Campbell-Walter, last year's winner. Bobi third, going fourth in their Ferraris. Piccini up to fifth, and Alio up to sixth in the second Festina Force One Racing Viper, as Mike Hazelmans has picked up a puncture from somewhere. Oh dear, and it is ripping the car to shreds. But Robin, look, he is really going desperately slowly, but that tyre is just flailing around and shredding the car.
Well, very disappointing for them, because they were running strongly up in fourth place overall. A great drive from Hazelmans, and it seems like he's picked up a puncture somehow, maybe with some debris from another car, and you can see it's absolutely destroyed the back of the car. Look at that, it's flapping against the door. Once the carcass goes, the belt just takes everything with it. So don't think they're going to really recover to any extent from that.
Mike Hazelmans, you had a puncture, but what happened exactly?
I don't know. I think a piece of another car. I think we drove over it. I had the bad luck it got up in the tire. I don't know. I saw nothing on the track, but and then when the tire's flat, I had it in the first corner, so that's always bad. You have to make a whole trip to here.
Well, after much toing and froing between the stewards and Twan Hazelmans and the deft use of a fair amount of tank tape, three of the car back on track with Anthony Kumpen and going like a bat out of hell. 30 laps into the race, and the race leader in for routine service. Jean-Marc Gounon leading comfortably. Right behind him is the second Ferrari, and the third place Ferrari rather, behind the Lister Storm, the number 14 car, Thomas Biaggi and Matteo Bobi's car. And oops, a stall there from Tony Seiler. Loses the lead, gets out behind the number 23 car. The 22 car is there as well. The JMB team, the BMS team rather, have turned the car around very quickly indeed and have moved ahead of the long-time race-leading Celine. Into the pits then comes the number 14 Lister Storm. Last year's winner Jamie Campbell-Walter with Nick Springer. This year with another new partner, teenage driver Nathan Kinch. Well, Kinch and Jamie have had a very, very eventful season so far. Yet to win a race, but with the drama of the bit of Viper coming through the windscreen for the first round of the championship, Jamie could certainly do with a good break. They come out behind the Celine. Oh, and a Ferrari coming round the outside. Baptism of fire time for Nathan Kinch. The Ferrari's there, and right behind him as well is the Piccini and Delatraz Lister Storm. This is not really a time, though, to be checking your mirrors, Robin. I think this is a time to be looking in front of you and heading as quickly as you can out of harm's way.
Well, it's a real challenge for a driver coming out of the pits on stone-cold tyres, and Nathan's done the sensible thing there and let the number 22 car go by just until he can settle into his rhythm, which will take... The tyres will come on after about a kilometre of driving, so 2 or 3 corners and he should be up to pace.
Well, the 14 Lister Storm, just about the last of the GT class cars to come in, and that is the end of the race there with those pictures for Twan Hazemans and Anthony Kumpen.
So Anthony Kumpen, what happened after the puncture?
Well, the puncture killed the gearbox, so now I was driving, the car was still okay. It was a bit of vibration because of the tire, but the gearbox became tougher and tougher. And now in the end I was stuck in 6th gear, so we couldn't continue.
And it's really hot here. You even have a cooling system under your suit. So how does it work and how is it in the car?
Yeah, it's really good cooling system. We have it from in America, from the race we did in Sebring, because it was so hot, and it's working really well. Because Mikey was feeling quite ill this morning, and he said, I don't think I can handle this. But with the cooling system, he said after 40 minutes it was no problem. And I myself, I have to say it was really good. Just the head is still hot, but the body is quite cool.
So, the lead now being held by the number 23 Ferrari of Biaggi and Bobi.
Weekend with LG Digitally Yours.
Round 4 of the FIA GT Championship at Brno. You're looking at the NGT front runners being lapped now by the car that was the race leader when Jamie Campbell-Walter came in last of the GT cars to hand over to teenager Nathan Kinch. Well, they came back out in 3rd or 4th position, and Nathan now at the helm of the Lister Storm, trying to keep himself firmly on track, going past the 88 car. That's Jamie Davis and Tim Mullen, the second of team at Maranello Concessionaires Ferraris. And you can see just in the queue of cars behind them is their sister car. And Tim Mullen driving this one with the pale blue mirrors. The 89 car as a thoughtful identification for whiny commentators. They did put a Dayglow strip across the top of the windscreen under the banner that says FIAGT.com. However, the FIA scrutineer said, no, you cannot do that. It detracts from our banner. You must take it off. So now they've stuck a little Dayglow patch on the mirrors. Thank you very much indeed to the Maranello team for at least trying to identify the 2 cars, or help me identify the 2 cars for the viewers. However, they now are all but indistinguishable again. However, they're going to try and do something when they get home. So there you are, 3 races, a bit of whinging on air and talking to them in the pits.
You're going to get yourself into trouble, Martin, with the FIA.
I'll be given a stern written warning, more of which in the midweek programme, I'm sure. So the Lister then, and the Ferrari right in front of it, again showing, Robin, that the speed differential between the 2 classes on this circuit, which is not a wildly fast circuit, is not that great. It's actually quite hard to get past a front-running NGT car, even in a front-running GT car.
Yeah, Nathan managing to squeeze by now, but actually, I mean, the car is quite a high downforce car, much more so than any of the NGT cars. So really, in the corners, it shouldn't be a major problem. But they're not, you know, exiting the corner maybe just as quickly as they would be on other circuits, let's say.
Well, in the medium to high-speed stuff, certainly it's got a bit of an advantage, but off the slower second and third gear corners, the lighter weight and the lower inertia of the NGT cars helps them stay just tantalising out of reach of the GT cars. But as you say, he got by there, and still continuing with his chase of the number 22 car. Fabrizio Golin started it, Luca Capillari doing the middle stint here. And as we've seen, they were the winners on the road, narrowly over Matteo Bobi and Thomas Biaggi in Enna, only to lose it in the scrutineering bay with a cracked airbox. Now then, moving on, this is the battle for second place, 52 laps into the race. And this is Jean-Denis Delatraz versus Tony Seiler. Delatraz, no, I beg your pardon, it's Nathan Kinch, in fact, the 14 car, putting himself into second place ahead of the erstwhile leader. And here is your actual factual leader, the number 23 Ferrari, still out front since that very quick turnaround. And Robin, you have to think that they did not only a slick driver change in fuel stop, but probably double stint of the tyres. And Nathan Kinch facing the wrong way in the middle of the road, looking down at the switches, trying to get the Lister to fire, puff of smoke from the exhaust. Got it into reverse now, but he's been there for a while.
Well, that's a great shame really for Nathan, because he was running strongly and he'd got past the Celine, which was initially leading the race, but unfortunately he's just obviously had a wee slip up, although he seems to have got the car going again okay.
Well, we do know from previous experience that the starter motor down in that hot V12 is very, very hot itself and takes a long time to get the car restarted often, and he's lost some while there. There is the Thomas Erdos, Mike Newton. Celine is the one I'm looking for, yes. Being lapped, unfortunately. This is the replacement for the car that was destroyed at Enna in practice, being lapped by the number 2 Franz Conrad racing Celine. Now that, of course, now being driven by Tony Seiler, and right behind them is Jean-Denis Delatraz now. So Seiler having plenty, whoa, and in fact he's just gone by him. Seiler having plenty of trouble with black cars at the moment, passed by one and now by the other.
Yeah, the thing which we didn't quite see, Seiler's having a look again to repass Delatraz, but I think that's unlikely. The thing which we didn't really see was at the pit stops. I mean, Gunon came in with quite a large lead of about 13, 14, 15 seconds, something like that. Somehow in the pit stop something went wrong. We saw the 23 Ferrari come out in the lead then from Gunon's car after Seiler had taken over, and somehow they must have lost a big chunk of time in the pit stop. So you know, that's something which needs to be quite slick, because obviously Gunon finding that amount of time on the circuit and then it's all lost in the pit lane, it's not good.
Jumping into the race, lap 60, and this is the second of the Lister Storms into the pits. Also coming in one of the BMS Ferraris, and which of the trio is that? All of them well placed. Yeah, trying to read it in the mirror reflection. Looks like the 23 car to me. And there's also the Jones Brothers Eurotech car being changed.
Thomas Biaggi, very quick pit stop, very quick on the track. How can you do it?
But, you know, with 100 kilo was not easy for brake, for acceleration, for tires. But the team did a fantastic job. The tire also very consistent. Also, I see some oil on track, and many cars went out. Fortunately, I was very careful. I saw the oil on track, and I did the 3 corner with 1 gear less. Very careful, because the oil was a lot on track. And then I overtake 2 cars. From 3rd place, I went in 1st. I did, I think, a very good stint. Physically, I'm okay. Mechanics, everybody make a fantastic job, so I'm very happy for this result with 100 kilo. Bye-bye. Ciao, thank you.
100 kilos, that's like sticking me in the passenger seat, poor sod.
Well, maybe not quite that much, but...
Yeah. Lap 67 and drama for the number 2 Conrad Celine. Tony Seiler at the helm, having taken over the car that came in with a big advantage, but now it looks as though their race may be run. Here's Jean-Marc Gounon.
Jean-Marc Gounon, can you tell us what happened to you? How did you lose so much time?
Like in the last two races, we began to have a gearbox problem after the second hour, and now the car is coming in, it's finished. The gearbox is broken, I think, again. We have a big trouble with that car, with the gearbox. In Manicourt we did 40 minutes. And Pelgusa we did 1 hour and 50. Now we do 2 hours 20, but we still have the same problem. It's urgent to find it because it's very disappointing. The car is. I think we have a winning team. With the good tires, the good team, the good drivers. We can win a race with this car, but we have to be reliable first.
Franz Conrad, in fact, bringing the car in, and it seems that it's got an electrical misfire as well as its gearbox woes, and that looks like...
Yokohama, the art of performance.
Closing stages of the fourth race in the FIA GT Championship, and the car that succumbed to an engine failure in morning warm-up not looking that healthy. Stefan Doudy, the Frenchman, in the 99 car, crawling back to the pits with what seems like a terminal problem.
Stefan Doudy, you had to retire. It was not a very good race for you, no?
No, it's not a very good race. Like the other, unfortunately, we had drive shaft broken, and that's very bad because we had tires problem all the weekend. We couldn't set up the car, and during the race, because we were so far in the classement, we decided to try another compound of tires, and the car was much better. I was coming back on the other. I think I was becoming 5 or 6, and drive shaft broken. So I hope next race is going to be okay.
Well, the RWS team certainly deserve a little better luck for all the effort they're putting into their cars this season. Now then, right in the dying minutes, 4.5 left to be precise, and Jamie Campbell-Walter in the number 14 Lister Storm in 4th place, closing relentlessly on the Ferrari ahead of him. It's the number 22 car of Luca Capillari and Fabrizio Golin, with Golin at the helm doing the final stint. And Jamie is lapping 1 2/10 of a second quicker every lap, and has been for the last 20 or 30 minutes, gradually working his way into position. There is the other Lister Storm in 2nd place at the moment. Ferrari lead, Ferrari 3rd, Lister 2nd, Lister 4th. It's about now that the heavens ought to open and everything start to go cataclysmically wrong for the Lister team if the script of this year is to be followed. But at the moment, what was forecast to be a bit of an overcast and stormy day is turning into anything but. There is one of the 2 Eurotech Porsches, Mike Jordan and Mark Sumter driving one, and David and Godfrey Jones driving the other. Won't have a Eurotech car on the NGT podium here, but we should have a Porsche. Stefano Ortelli leading comfortably in the NGT category, but it's Ferraris behind him, with the Bertolini and De Simone car in 2nd, Jamie Davis and Tim Mullen in 3rd, Tim Sugden and Martin Short in 4th place in the class, but they are a little bit adrift of the Jamie Davis-Tim Mullen car. And the long-time front-runner for the Maranello concessionaires outfit, the Calvin Burton Darren Turner car, succumbing to some as-yet unnamed problem and dropping down the order a little bit. But Robin, again, the Ferraris, despite what fortunes and what weather and track conditions are thrown at them, seem to be again in the driving seat, 4 times in 4 straight races.
Well, they've driven a faultless race. I mean, Jean-Marc Gounon was very fast at the beginning, but as we saw, they had problems. The Biaggi Bobby Ferrari 550 has just kept their noses clean. They've not made any mistakes, and they've made good pit stops, and consequently they're there at the end. But if you look down at NGT, I would have to say that the Stefan Ortelli, Mark Lieb, Freisinger combination has been absolutely dominant today. The JMB Ferraris put up a strong performance, and they're going to get 2nd place, which is a great result for the championship. But really, Ortelli very keen to put some points on the leaderboard at this stage of the season, and they really have dominated the race in NGT today. They're been, considerably quicker really than anybody else consistently.
Just ahead of that little battle, we saw the number 6, the blue Lister Storm of Bobby Verdenreau and Marco Zadra, and again, quietly and conservatively, keeping themselves out of danger and out of drama, and in 6th position. So another good point-scoring run for them. So it's Ferrari Lister, Ferrari Lister, Ferrari Lister. Celine's 7th and 8th, the 2 Graham Nash Motorsport cars. Mike Newton and Tommy Erdos, and the 3 Portuguese, Anarim, Chavez and Ramos in 8th place. And in 9th place overall, the NGT leader. But again, as you say, Biaggi and Bobby, no dramas at all. And but for Nathan Kinch's unfortunate spin, and not so much the spin itself, but how long it takes to restart a big hot engine like that. Must have lost 20 or 30 seconds. And well, Jamie Campbell-Walter in 4th place. That could have meant the difference between challenging for 3rd, maybe challenging for the lead in the closing half hour of the race. So these things happen, and as we heard already from Matteo Bobbi or Thomas Biaggi, which I forget, about a large slick of oil on the track during that centre stint, and he managed to spot it and avoid it. It's entirely possible that young Nathan Kinch didn't spot it and therefore didn't avoid it, and that may be, it doesn't seem there was any contact involved in his spin, may well be what caused him his dramas. There's the British entered Graham Nash Motorsport Celine, or the British, one of the 2 British entered cars, the I was going to say British crude, but of course Tommy Erdos is only an honorary Brit, having driven most of his life in the UK, but that running in 7th place, and a replacement, I'm sure, for the car that they destroyed at Enna, coming over from the States, but certainly not within a fortnight anyway.
Yeah, it's been a disappointing run for the Celines in one respect, because I mean, you would have to say, watching the race in the first hour, the Conrad Celine was the absolute class of the field in terms of pace, and it's important not to forget that. Obviously they're not there at the end. You need reliability, and unfortunately you know, in this particular instance they've had a failure again, but I'd like to commend them, because you know, we know the Celine is an excellent GTS car, and they just haven't been able to either have the consistency of driver lineup or budget to be able to throw at that particular car. But it's a very strong run from them, and really let's wish for them that they can get a good result going forward. They deserve it.
Absolutely right, and another good result coming the way of Thomas Biaggi and Matteo Bobbi. The 2 of them now looking to rack up the 4th win of the season, and on paper it certainly looks like they've been shatteringly dominant. 4 wins in the record books, 40 points it'll be at the end of this lap, a perfect score. Of course they didn't win in Enna on speed. The Lister Storm had its windscreen and roof taken off in Barcelona by an errant piece of Viper thrown up by a Ferrari in front of it, and it may well have won in Spain, but for Nathan's spin here, Jamie might well have been either in the lead or challenging for the lead here as well. So it's certainly not been as cut and dried as those, you know, bare statistics would make it look. But they are clearly 2 very well-suited drivers, and they know when to take a chance in traffic, and they know when not to, just as importantly. They know when to bide their time, which they've done in other races, and then come out on top as a result. And certainly the 550 Maranello is not only an excellent car, but being run very well indeed by the team. You can't fault them in any element of it at all. Well prepared, stays together, no silly mistakes on track, no silly mistakes in the pits, and beyond that there's not much you can ask. They've got a car capable of winning, and making darn sure that they win every time out. 4th in a row, and that is just an awesome start to the season. With whatever points anybody else gets, even if they don't go to Spa-Francorchamps and win the Spa 24 Hours, these guys are going to be so tough to catch in the championship. So a big wheel spin across the line from them. 2nd place now, Andrea Piccini. And look at that, there is the battle for 2nd. He's behind the Portuguese crude car, and 2nd and 3rd are right there. Piccini coming across the line just ahead of the 3rd place Ferrari, and that will leave Jamie Campbell-Walter there. He is in 4th place, and right beside him the Freisinger Porsche coming across the line to win the NGT class as well. A lap down in 9th place. In fact, the NGT winner 3 laps down in 9th place. But again, it must be a mighty relief for Ortelli and Lieb to actually get points on the board.
Well, it's interesting because this is where they started their winning streak from last year. They had a couple of non-scores that Freisinger did at the beginning of last year, and suddenly they started a string of wins which ultimately took them to the championship. But yeah, a very good race. It's been a difficult day's racing for them all, and in hot conditions, and it's been a great race on all sides.
Well, you've got to say, looking at that, if you don't have a Lister or a Ferrari, you're no one at the moment. The Salines have been quick but frail, and the Vipers, well, likewise, either quick and unfortunate or just not quite quick enough to mix it with the pace of development still at the front. And this, of course, with the Pro-Drive Ferraris and the Listers, well, they're trying to develop their prototype car as well. The 2-point scoring Salines, though, 7th and 8th for Graham Nash.
Ahead for win after 4 races. We have 40 points, so it's good. Just I think the rules from 100 kilo, if you win, I think is very shit, the rules, because in all sports, when you win, you are the best one. No, and here, if you win, you put more kilo. I think it's very stupid rules.
And that's the kind of comment that the FIGA just love to hear.
Such an incredible battle with Golin at the end of the race. How did you manage to stay in front?
I was just pushing as much as possible. My tires were good all the third stint. The car was a lot better than in the third stint, so I could really push. Then I had a little gap, and then I started to find back markers, and I lost a lot of time, but at the end I could keep him behind. He was pushing very hard.
It's your best result with the Lister. Now you're really used to this car?
I'm starting to get used to the car, but this circuit I think suited very well to the car. The Dunlop tires were good because the car was very consistent all through the stint, so I think everything was okay. We still have some small problem on the car, but I think for Donington everything will be fine.
And let's catch up with our NGT winner.
It's all been like last year, more or less. You know, we've been taking a very, very good victory for Porsche this weekend in Dawn. We did it last year, and I mean, the car was just fantastic. We had a really good chance to fight from the beginning because the qualifying lap from Mark was great, but I had to fight. I lost 2 places in the first lap, and I had to come back. I have to say also the fight with the Ferrari was fair this weekend, and we had no clash, no contact, and a very good race for us.
So our NGT winner looking a very happy bunny as well, he should do. And well, there you go. There is the championship. Perfect score for Biaggi and Bobby. Delatraus and Pacini now move into second ahead of Capillari and Golin. Calderali, Livio and Lillian Brinner in 4th place ahead of Nathan Kinch, Jamie Campbell-Walter. Bobby Verden-Rowe with 2 partners on his own now in 6th place. And in the NGT category, Jamie Davis and Tim Mullen 3 points off the lead, with Ortelli and Lieb leaping up now to 3rd place. So, find out all the gossip from behind the scenes and the recap of the action on Friday nights this week. The LG Super Racing Weekend magazine moves from Wednesdays to Fridays. 10:15 CET, 9:15 on British Eurosport. And then, of course, as they've all been very kind enough to say, next time they go racing, British fans, you can...